You've been called intimidating, cold, hard to read, maybe even scary, by someone who has never once seen you raise your voice, throw a punch, or say a cross word to anybody in your life. And here's the part that's going to bother you. They're not lying. They really felt it. The fear was real. The tension in that room was real. The way their whole bodies shifted when you walked in was real. It just had nothing to do with you. Somewhere between 1965 and 1994, an entire generation of black kids built a survival system so precise, so quiet, so effective, that decades later, just standing still in a Tuesday meeting reads to a stranger's nervous system as a threat. Not because you did anything, because of what you learned not to do. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly why people flinch at a man getting coffee and why it was never, ever about you.
Pew Research marks Gen X as people born between 1965 and 1980. That means their most formative years, ages 13 to 19, landed somewhere between the late 70s and the mid-90s. And for black teenagers specifically, that window overlapped with one of the sharpest spikes in youth violence this country has tracked. Economist Roland Fryer's data, covered by PBS, showed the homicide rate for black males aged 14 to 17 more than doubled between 1984 and 1994. Doubled in 10 years, during the exact years a teenager's brain is wiring its permanent threat detection system. Here's what people miss about that fact. Nobody sits a 14-year-old down and teaches him hypervigilance in a classroom. It's not a lesson. It's an update that installs itself. You don't decide to check the exits when you walk into a corner store. You just do it, the same way you don't decide to blink. You don't decide to go quiet on a crowded bus and read every face in the first 5 seconds. Your nervous system does the math before your conscious mind even shows up to the meeting. That's not a personality trait. That's a survival algorithm, compiled under pressure, running in the background for the rest of your life, including 40 years later in a beige conference room over a budget review nobody even cares about.
Here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the misreading isn't random. It's measurable. Researchers at the University of Colorado Boulder ran what's called the shooter bias studies. Show people images, armed and unarmed, black and white, and ask them to decide in a split second, shoot or don't shoot. The pattern holds again and again. People pull the trigger faster on armed black targets and hesitate longer to hold fire on unarmed black targets. This isn't a study on police officers. This is regular civilians in a lab making split-second calls their conscious mind never signed off on. Now stack another study on top of that, published in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology, that found 2 physical features alone shift how intimidating a neutral face reads, how wide the face is relative to its height, and how level the head is held. Not the expression, not what the person said, just bone structure and posture. A blank face, rated as dominant, before a single word gets spoken. Then add research out of memory and cognition, showing that faces with more Afrocentric features get rated as more threatening, again, at rest, again, with 0 aggression present. Put all 3 together, and you get a brutal equation. A nervous system trained to hold still and watch, wearing a face that gets misread as hostile by default, walking into rooms full of people whose own brains are pattern matching before logic even boots up. You didn't build the bias. You just have to live inside it.
Harvard Business Review published research in 2022 naming it directly, the angry black woman stereotype. Organizations across industries consistently rate black women as more hostile and more aggressive for the exact same behavior that gets called assertive or direct coming from someone else. But here's the twist that should make you angry. It's not even consistent. Dr. Keisha Thomas has documented what she calls the pet-to-threat pattern. Black women often get welcomed in as the exciting new hire, the articulate, delightful addition to the team. Then, somewhere between month 6 and year 2, right when she starts asking for what she's earned, the story flips. Now she's difficult. Now she's intimidating. Same voice, same competence. The only thing that changed is she stopped being small. Lean In's Women in the Workplace data backs this up cold. Black women are promoted to manager at lower rates than white women. More than a quarter report race costing them an advancement, and they receive 3 to 4 times the othering comments about hair, tone, name that white women get. So when a black Gen X woman sits quiet in a meeting, thinks before she talks, and then delivers something sharp and complete with no filler, the room doesn't experience competence. It experiences a threat, because the story was already loaded before she opened her mouth.
There's another layer under all of this: economy of words. A lot of Black Gen X folks don't pad sentences, don't repeat themselves for effect. Say what needs saying and stop. That's efficient. That's respectful of everyone's time. But to someone raised in a household where talking fills silence and reassures the room, economy sounds like coldness. A one-line email reads as anger. Not responding within an hour reads as plotting something. None of that was ever true. It's two different communication systems built under two different sets of rules, colliding without either side realizing there's a translation gap at all. Same with eye contact. Holding a steady gaze, not aggressive, just attentive, reads as a challenge to someone who was taught to look away first out of politeness. They can't hold it. They assume you're trying to dominate the exchange. You were just listening the way you were taught to. You felt it your whole life, probably without a name for it. You walk into a store and know, before anyone says a word, that the cashier just tensed up. You get in an elevator and watch a stranger's grip on their back tighten half an inch. You clock a manager 3 days before they try something, because the tone in one email was off by a degree nobody else noticed. That's not superstition. Researchers studying race-based stress in Black Americans call it hypervigilance, a learned adaptation, built from repeated exposure to environments where reading a room fast wasn't optional, it was protective. It's pattern recognition, refined over decades, running quietly enough that most people who have it don't even register it as a skill. They just call it knowing. Here's the cost nobody puts in the job description. The same radar that keeps you 2 steps ahead of trouble is the radar strangers can feel pointed at them, even when they can't explain why. People don't like being read, even when it's harmless, even when it's protective, even when you're not doing anything but standing in line, quietly aware of the room the way you've been aware of rooms since you were 14.
So you end up managing 2 things at once every single day in every single space, staying alert enough to protect yourself and staying soft enough that nobody clocks the alertness and decides you're the problem. That's not paranoia. That's 2 full-time jobs running on one nervous system. Here's the uncomfortable truth this video isn't going to smooth over. Knowing why you get misread doesn't make the misreading stop. The bias is real, it's documented, and it's not going anywhere on its own. You have 2 options, and neither one is free. Option 1, you perform. You soften the face, raise the pitch, add the exclamation points, tilt the head. It works, but it's labor, real, measurable labor. Research on vigilant coping, the constant self-monitoring Black Americans engage in to manage other people's perception, links that ongoing performance to higher chronic stress. You're not imagining the exhaustion, it's in the data. Option 2, you stop performing and you let people sit with their own discomfort. That's not aggression, that's a boundary. Either way, and this is the part worth remembering the next time somebody tells you that you are intimidating and you were just standing there, that reaction didn't come from you. It came from a nervous system that flinched before you did anything, running a script written by conditions that have nothing to do with who you actually are. You didn't walk into that room and intimidate anyone. You walked in, and their own wiring did the rest.